Welcome back to Company Grip Guitar. I am Ben, and today we're going to be looking at this, a 2025 Godin Radium. Let's get into it. Well, welcome back to my channel. Thank you for tuning in if this is your first time. So today I'm looking at a guitar from one of my favorite manufacturers. This is the Godin Radium guitar, something that came out about 6 years ago, and I've wanted to get my hands on one ever since. And for whatever reason, I decided to pull the trigger about a month ago, and I've kind of just been playing around with it and doing this review, and well, here it is now. Now, two things before we get into this. If you haven't seen my videos before, they tend to run a little bit long because I dissect the guitar, I take it all apart, I look at everything as much as I can, and then I put that information out there in this video for you. So if you want to skip ahead to any part like the sound test or my final thoughts on it or how much it weighs, there should be little tabs at the bottom of the scroll bar. You can fast forward to those and they should be labeled, or in the table of contents it should all be listed there as well. Now the second thing I want to talk about is this thing right here. So you see I've got two microphones on. Well, I'm actually doing a little bit of a test for one of those little DJI Osmo pocket cameras. These little things there. For the NAMM show coming up, you know, what better place to test out a microphone than doing one of my videos. So with that being said, let's get into this 2025 Godin Radium. I never see anybody playing a Radium, and that's why I wanted to get my hands on one of them. Now this is actually a hybrid of two of Godin's other guitars, the first one being the Stadium guitar, which is their version of the Fender Telecaster. It's got a bolt-on neck, 25.5-inch scale, two single coil pickups, ashtray style bridge. And then the other guitar that it's a hybrid of is Godin's Radiator guitar, which is kind of a unique guitar in and of itself, at least aesthetically. I would say that that thing is probably most closely related to maybe like a Les Paul Special, in that it's got, you know, either a P90 or humbuckers. It's got a set neck, 24 3/4-inch scale, and then lastly one of these wraparound bridges. So what they did with this guitar is they kind of took, in their own words, the best of both guitars and combined them into one, and that's what I'm going to get into with this review. So it's kind of an exciting guitar for me because it is that sort of bridge between two guitars that I really like. Of course, a Les Paul, and if you've watched my channel before, then you know that a Telecaster to me is the second best guitar, just behind one of these. That's the best guitar. But yes, it's this hybrid nature that really draws me into this guitar, and you can see the obvious Tele and Les Paul influences on this model, and it does have a very unique look because of that. So the cost of the Radium is actually pretty affordable, especially for a North American made guitar, and specifically in Canada. So the most basic bottom of the line Radium, which has the same exact electronics package, but it just has a bare finish on the wood, that's the carbon black finish is what they call it, that retails for about $1,000. Now the next step up is just a solid matte green finish, but again the same electronics package, and that one retails for about $1,100. Now there's another model called the Winchester, which is a three-piece body. You've got a mahogany center slab and then two basswood slabs on the side attached to it. And I believe the pickups are upgraded, and that one retails for about $1,130, $1,150. And then the top of the line model is called the Radium X, which has a chambered maple body with a carved maple top, completely different set of electronics on it. It's got some of those transducer piezo pickups built into it as well, so you can get more clean, acoustic, bright, jangly sounds. That one retails for something like $2,300. So that one's a completely different animal than this one here. Now you might be wondering about this finish, or maybe it's already scared some of you away. This finish I picked up from the Godin Limited Run Shop, and it's called Hangover. I'm not kidding you. This finish is called Hangover. Now what does that imply? I don't really know. You know, of course I kind of had a chuckle, like, does it mean somebody came in really hungover and they couldn't finish the job or accidentally belt sanded too much of it? I don't really know. But yes, the Limited Run Shop on the Godin website is kind of like the Gibson Mod Shop website, except the Limited Run Shop tends to be less pricey than the actual guitars they're based off of, whereas the Mod Shop is the opposite. They're usually magnitudes higher priced than what they normally would be. But yeah, so I got this thing for $999, which is equivalent to the most basic bottom of the line price for the Radium. Same electronics in that model as this one. Now this Hangover finish is not unique to just this guitar. They release several guitars with that finish. Some of them are production run guitars, and I have to be honest, the comments are pretty hilarious. So when they unveiled this finish at NAMM, and these are the comments that came out of it. "This is just bad. For such a great guitar company, this is just baffling." And my personal favorite quote was, "I'm Canadian, but this is just embarrassing." So even though I've had this for a while now, I have to admit I don't have an opinion formulated about this finish yet. At times I look at it and I think, that is hideous. Other times I look at it and I think, you know what, that's a unique finish on a very unique guitar. And then most of the time I'm really just wondering, like, what was the idea here? Because it doesn't match like a common wear pattern on a guitar. Like a Murphy Lab wear, you know, they always like wear it out here, they'll wear it out near the switches. But this, like, it would never wear under the bridge, so I don't really know what exactly this is. So, unique finish for a unique guitar. Now when it comes to the case, well, this is what we've got here. It's a standard issue gig bag from Godin. I've seen these before. I have probably a ton of them in the closet. What that means is you get tons of pockets. You've got a little one here on the neck portion, which is stacked on top of a larger one for storing breadsticks or something like that. Below that, you've got another pocket, this one with all the case candy, which there isn't much, just some wrenches for adjusting the truss rod and the wraparound bridge. And there's an ad for the guitar lesson app as well. Now under the case candy pocket, you've got an even bigger pocket, this one for storing sheet music, a laptop, some pens, or maybe a small set of tools, I don't know, a tire iron. Inside the bag, it's decently cushioned, but I wouldn't want to drop it. Now the neck rest has a strap, which is good for securing the instrument from bouncing around too much, or heck, you can just remove the whole rest if you want. Now on the back side, there's some backpack style straps, a little strap handle thing here at the top, and a place to put an address card. Oh yes, and one more giant pocket. Now the carrying handle on the side there is nice and padded, so it will be comfortable carrying around. Now as far as gig bags go, it's really not a bad gig bag. It's not the best one I've seen, but it'll do the trick for protecting your guitar, and not bad for a $1,000 North American made guitar. Now, as far as the body on this guitar, it is borrowed 100% from the Godin Stadium guitar with one key difference. We have a set neck here as opposed to the Stadium's bolt-on neck. The body is made out of 100% Canadian Laurentian basswood, which is a little bit different than your standard basswood in that it is a little bit denser and harder. Now, while that won't affect the tone much, it should increase the sustain is what I hear. Now the radium does look like a flat slab, but it actually has a decent amount of carving on the backside. So you've got, starting right about where the neck joint is, going all the way around to just past the strap button on the bottom. It's got a nice beveled edge there and actually a pretty deep belly carve. Now, as I mentioned, it is inspired by the Telecaster, but it is quite a bit different as well. So here's a Telecaster body, here is the Radium body. One of the key differences is that the Radium is actually quite a bit narrower in this regard, about 1/2 inch to 1 inch narrower than the Telecaster, and then on top of that, the horn is actually about 1 inch further towards the headstock than what you get on a Telecaster. Now what that means is on a 24 3/4 inch scale guitar, it's actually very stable when you're strapped up, and I'll demonstrate that in a little bit here. Moving on to the neck of this guitar, the part that was largely borrowed from the Radiator guitar, you've got a 3-piece silver leaf maple neck. So we've got a block here at the heel, then the majority of the neck attaches to that, and then the headstock has a scarf joint, bisecting it kind of right down the middle from the tuning pegs here all the way down to the E-string tuning keys. It's a very nice feeling neck for sure, but what I like is that it's topped with this rosewood fretboard. Now when it comes to these dimensions here, for the nut I'm getting a 1.68. For the first fret I'm getting a 0.82, and down here at the 12th fret I'm getting a 0.90 inches. Similar to a Tele, you have pretty decent access to even the furthest frets down there, of which this neck has 22 of those. Now moving up to the headstock, this is the 3 on a side headstock that's shared by a lot of Godin's guitars. You see this on some of their more bluesy or jazz guitars like their Montreal or their Fifth Avenue guitar, but they put it on this guitar. It's also on the Radiator. It looks okay to me, but I think I prefer the S style or the T style headstock on this body style anyway. I don't know, what do you guys think? I think it makes it unique, but doesn't mean it makes it look better. Moving into the hardware of this guitar, we're going to start with my least favorite part, which is these Schaller strap buttons. Now, Godin's been putting these on their guitars for over 2 decades now, at least since the late 90s, early 2000s. And I have 2 qualms with these. First off, I used to swear by them, and they are good strap locks. But when you play a SG and the strap button is right here, you get tired of your ribs bruising because they protrude like 2 inches. So that's kind of when I swore them off. The second thing I don't like is you only get the guitar portion. They don't send the actual strap portion. So if you buy a guitar and it's got these on it, you can't use your strap until you get that other portion, because these just don't provide any security unless you do what I've done, which this is not an endorsement. I'm not trying to work this into the video, but I have long sworn by these locket straps. I mean, the profile, super thin, but it's just a snap mechanism there like this. Let's see if you can see that. And you just attach it to even these Schaller buttons and check that out. So yeah, locket straps, they're pretty cool. I'll put a link in the description below. And again, this is not a product endorsement or a sponsorship thing. I just really like those straps. Okay, moving on. Let's talk about the compensated wraparound bridge. Now this bridge here is made by a Korean company called Sung-il. Specifically, it is the BM116 bridge, which you can find on a lot of guitars actually. As far as setting it up, it's pretty easy. They give you the tools to adjust the backside screws, which pulls the strings. That's how you would adjust the intonation. You would do one side and the other and try and get the E's intonated, and then pray to God that the rest of the strings kind of follow suit, because there's not a lot of fine tuning for that. As far as the height, you can adjust that also with these poles here. You can raise and lower them with just a flathead screwdriver. Pretty simple system. It's not any different than any other wraparound bridge, and we know that those are pretty tried and true. Up from the bridge, we get to our trio of pickups. So what we've got here is Zebra Custom Godin humbuckers in both the bridge and the neck. And in the middle, we've got a Godin Custom Cajun nickel pickup. These are all made by a Korean pickup manufacturer, G&B Pickups. They're known for doing like the PRS SE line, or they used to anyway, as well as some of the ESP LTD line as well. It's kind of like that lower mid-tier pickups, mid-tier level. When we pop these pickups out, you can see that it says nothing except for G&B and ferrite, or in other words, ceramic. I don't really get anything on the middle pickup there, but I have no reason to believe it's also not a ceramic pickup. Now I'll give you the readings for these in a second, but first let's talk about these controls over here. So Godin calls this the reinvented vintage style control plate. I mean, they added a jack and they add a little bit of an angle to the slider, but I wouldn't call that a complete reinvention. Anyway, so yes, controls are very similar to a Tele. You've got a 5-way selector in this case, a master volume and a master tone, but this tone is also a push-pull, which will split the humbuckers when you're in either the 1 or the 5 position. So let's talk about these 5 positions here. So first position is the complete humbucker, or you can split it to just the bridge coil. The second position is just the bridge coil and the center pickup, and the push-pull won't affect the sound at all. The middle position is just the middle pickup. The number 4 position is the middle pickup and the neck-most coil, and again, the coil split won't affect that at all. And lastly, the number 5 position is the neck humbucker, or you can split it so it's just the neck coil, the single coil that's closest to the headstock. So 7 total positions for quite a bit of sonic variation. Now here's the readings that I got on these pickups in all 7 positions. So for the bridge humbucker, I'm getting a very hot 15.81. For the neck humbucker, I'm getting a much more reasonable 8.84. The middle pickup, I'm getting a 6.16. In position 2, I'm getting a 3.48. In position 4, I'm getting a 2.6. Now, as expected with the bridge pickup, when I split it, I'm getting a perfect half there at 7.90. And in the neck position, when I split that, I'm getting a 4.47. So overall, you've got a very hot bridge pickup here, which I'm guessing is for those screaming leads. And then you've got a pretty average heat neck pickup there. And then as far as the middle, you know, we're going to see how that sounds in the sound test here. But again, like I said, it seems like you've got a lot of different options, and I'm really curious to kind of mess around with those for this sound test. Now regarding the control cavity, as other users have commented, it's very pretty on the outside, but there is a lot of wires and stuff stuffed in that cavity. So it's kind of hard to make heads or tails of what exactly is going on there. But you can see we've got the push-pull pot right there. These pots are from Jinsung, which is another Korean manufacturer. And again, they provide parts for PRS SE as well as ESP and a couple other different brands as well. They're decent pots. They're not CTS pots, but they do the trick. Now moving on from the electronics, let's talk about these frets. So you've got 22 of them on here. These are reading at about 50 thousandths in height, which is not too high, not too low for me anyway. Now a lot of people that watch my videos ask me how thick the frets are. I didn't take that measurement, but I don't find them to be unusually thick or thin. They just feel like average frets to me. But these have a really nice feel to them. They did a good job on the fretboard. There's no sharp ends. The frets have a real nice rollover, but it's not so long that I'm worried about my strings popping off the ends. So good work on that Godin. Now moving up from there, we get to our truss rod. This is a dual action truss rod buried in the neck here. You're gonna have to take my word that it's buried in there because it's so hard to get any light in that tiny hole there. But yes, it is there. I used it. It works good. Lastly, we get up to our tuners. They're Godin branded tuners, but I don't know if they actually make their own or if somebody else is making them for them. But what we've got is a 26:1 ratio down here on the treble side, and on the bass side of the guitar, we've got an 18:1 tuning ratio, which it's pretty cool. I think when they change that up, it shows a little bit more attention to detail. Like, we know you got to fine tune them to get them into that right spot. So I do appreciate that. The one thing I don't like, however, is these like tiny kidney bean tuners. I can't stand them. I don't know what it is. I just can't stand them. Anyway, that's it for the hardware and electronics. Moving on to the other materials, the plastics, the acrylics, that sort of stuff. Not a lot on this guitar, but we'll start here at the switch tip. So we've got a black Telecaster switch tip. It's identical. It kind of looks like a Lego head just stuck on there. That's what I think of anyway. Then we get to our bobbins. These are obviously zebra bobbins. I've always liked the way that these look, and I think this is the only guitar I have right now that has zebra bobbins on it. But yeah, I think it looks great on this guitar, in particular with this funky finish. Moving up to the neck here, we've got acrylic dot inlays going all the way up and down the fretboard, as well as the side dot markers. Up here at the nut, this is a Tusk nut, which is a pretty quality nut. It's very common. You find that on a lot of guitars nowadays. And then I would say probably the most unique thing about this guitar is this sort of pick guard material that is lining the headstock. Now I think in this video, as I'm looking at it, it looks like a painted headstock, but no, it's actually a 3-ply pick guard material stuff that is right there on the face of the headstock, black, white, black. And then on top of that, you've got a 2-ply white, black truss rod cover. So it's a lot of this weird pick guard material, but it's again drawn from the Radiator guitar, which if you remember my photo earlier, that's not a two-tone finish. That is a giant pick guard going all the way around the body. A very unique choice. But one thing I do like about this in particular is they've actually etched out the name Godin on the top layer of the pickguard material so that you can see the white shining through with the logo. That's kind of a cool idea, I think. Moving on to the feel of this guitar, well, it feels like a Telecaster. And what I mean by that is you've got this nice flat edge there, same thickness as a Telecaster, so when you're sitting there with it on your knee or something like that, or your leg, it's very stable. But then you're also thankfully welcomed by this belly carve, which is a pretty deep belly carve. It starts about here and goes all the way to here. So it's not really like a thin area that you got to wedge your body into. It's actually pretty freeing in that regard. And it's nice to not have it digging into your ribs. Now let's do the neck dive test and see how it performs for that. And again, if you'll remember, the strap button is about an inch farther out this way than it would be on a Telecaster, where it would be somewhere around this area, and this carve is more like that. So yes, it's very stable as a result of that. Yeah, it's definitely not going anywhere, which is always a welcome thing. No doubt benefited by the fact that this strap button is a little bit farther out, as well as the scale being just a little bit shorter at 24 3/4. As far as the sitting neck dive, well, there is a tendency for it to start leaning towards the headstock for sure. It's not exactly the best performer in that regard, but you guys always ask me about it, and so I guess, truth be told, it does seem to lean that way when I'm sitting, but when I was strapped up, didn't seem to be that much of a problem. Now, the weight of this guitar, in case you're curious, comes in at about 6.72 pounds, which is just a little bit shy of 6 pounds and 12 ounces. Now, as far as the way that the neck feels, I gotta say, this neck is absolutely phenomenal. It's just beautifully crafted. It's not too glossy, it's not a satin neck, so your hand's not sliding all over the place, it's not getting stuck where it shouldn't get stuck. Just feels really great. The fretwork is also pretty phenomenal. I'm very pleased with that. And something I do want to point out is check out this fretboard here. So a lot of times you get like a $2,000, $3,000 Gibson guitar and that rosewood fretboard shows up and it's bone dry. This thing looks like it just looks taken care of. It is absolutely beautiful. It's got a nice sheen to it. It looks very well oiled. Overall, very impressed with the way that it feels. And something I do want to point out that I'm kind of noticing now is it reminds me in the sense of where my hands are a lot of my SG Custom 61, which has barely any neck angle back. I think it was something like 1 degree, 1.5 degrees back. And this guitar is very close. I think this one has a 1 degree neck back angle from the body. So it's almost a flat surface all the way across. Again, very pleased with it as far as the way that it feels and the way that it fits. Let's see how it sounds now. Now, if you haven't seen one of my sound tests before, this is how it's going to go. I'm going to play a couple things, and I'll put all the settings on the side here so you can follow along where the volume is, where the tone is, what pickup I'm using, if I've got the pot pushed or pulled, that sort of thing. I have restrung the guitar with my favorite brand of guitar strings, which is the Stringjoy Broadway Customs, which is a custom set that I've built and used for a couple years now. You can build your own sets on there, which is really awesome. They are out of a few strings, but I hear that they're going to be in stock. Like, for example, I went to order a new set and the 24 wire, my beloved A string, is out of stock, but it should be in soon, so check them out. Anyway, let's check out this sound test. Well, thank you very much for checking out my video on the Godin Radium guitar. I'm curious your thoughts about it, whether it's talking about the finish or the way it sounds or anything else. Just leave it in the comments below and I will answer them as soon as possible. Now, regarding my own thoughts on it, I think it feels great. I mean, For a $1,000 guitar, this thing feels phenomenal. And I know I'm going to get some comments that say like, oh, you can get a great guitar for $400. That is very true. But getting a great North American guitar for $1,000, that is hard to come by these days. I mean, I don't know when the last time you could buy a guitar in America for $1,000 was, short of Godins, and occasionally I think Fender will do like a American player or whatever. But yeah, it's a hard thing to come by. So I have to give this guitar major props for that. The feel of the neck, phenomenal. I love that. I love all the tonal variations that you can get. The one thing I really don't like is I don't think the pickups are that great. You can certainly get good things out of them, but I do wish Godin would have spent a little bit more time and money and put maybe some better pickups in the guitar. I just find them to be a little lacking nuance. Like you've got screaming bridge pickup and you've got, you know, like somewhat jazzy neck pickup, but there's not really a lot of personality to it. And I do wish that that was a little bit different. I did find that you can get decent, you know, sounds out of it. Position 4 and 5 I messed around with quite a bit. I like that, but the pickups themselves, they're just lacking some tonal things that I like, some tonal qualities. I have read a lot about people actually swapping the pickups out. Read a story about one guy that swapped them for pearly gates and he loves it. Of course, that's a $300 set of pickups, so I would hope that he likes it. Yeah, I have no intention of swapping them myself. I like to keep the guitars bone stock, as you have probably heard on my channel before. But that being said, if I was going to change out pickups, this might not be a bad guitar to do it with, because truth be told, Godins just don't do great on the used market. I've even bought some of them for like $400 or $500 and showcased them on my channel because they're great guitars that just do terrible in the resale market. So anyway, that's my spiel on this guitar. I'd like to thank you guys for taking the time to watch this video. I'd also like to thank my Patreon subscribers for helping support my channel. And with that, I will talk to you guys next time. What are you doing? Look at the camera. Look. Look at that. What do you think of that?